Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And Madam Clerk, could you conduct roll call, please?
Revimo.
Present.
Councillor Legree.
Present.
Councillor McWhorter.
Present.
Councillor McDonald.
Present.
Councillor Cebulski.
Present.
Councillor Interdick. Revimo, we do have quorum.
Great. Thank you. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we're extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. And is there any declarations of interest? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, gentlemen. We will proceed with the public budget presentation, and after it's over, then we'll proceed with comments. So, Mr. Hodge, please.
Thank you. So we have the budget presentation of November 12th on the screen there now, and the 2026 budget is currently following a process and a timeline, and this is Budget Committee meeting number 4. We're on the budget timeline chart that's on the screen now, and the process this year is adapted to reflect the new Strong Mayor Powers legislation, which is Bill 3, Strong Mayors Building Homes Act 2022 and the Ontario Regulation 53022. The next calendar date of note on this chart is the one in the middle, November 17th. It's when the Budget Committee submits a draft budget to the Mayor. That finishes the Budget Committee process up to that date from the time that we started that part of the Strong Mayor's budget process. So the information in this meeting has had the recent Budget Committee changes made, and the info posted on the town website for this agenda has those changes included. The next slide. So this meeting is another opportunity for receiving public consultation and feedback during the budget process. In August, a budget survey was conducted, and the questions and the results are included in the staff draft information that was previously provided, and that's still up and available on our website for anybody who'd like to go look at that and what the results were. On the next slide, the annual budget provides resources to the town for that year, and it ties in with the strategies from the Road to 2035 strategic plan. And it does so in areas such as environmental stewardship, accessible age-friendly community, and transportation network, just to name a few. On the next slide, there are budgetary considerations. The budget takes into account factors that provide the established town services. It manages risks while balancing priorities, and each department head reviews and adjusts from 2025 to 2026, and at this point in the process, any updates from 2025 are incorporated into the 2026 budget. So on the next slide, we have an estimated, so far, 8.81% increase, and this is moving down from the starting point of 13.01%. If we look at that, it's an estimated $17 a month increase over 2025. If you look at that based on a median value residential property and what we've seen so far from the Budget Committee. Do you want me to keep going or wait for the screen?
No, we'll wait for
okay.
a couple screens to come back. Okay, they're all back now. Thank you.
I just wanted to make note, in comparison, the targeted budget increase for the County of Renfrew for 2026 is looking to be 6.7%, just as a comparator. On the next slide, we have incremental increases in provincial and federal funding, which is a beneficial increase to non-tax revenue. We can go ahead a few more slides to one with the pie chart. So we can see from this chart that revenue is largely from taxation and grants, and municipalities are not allowed to have a deficit, so the revenue balances with the expenses in a municipal budget. The total revenue for 2025 was $22.8 million, and for 2026 it's listed at $23.7 million. The levy for 2025 was $12.5 million, and for 2026, it's showing at $13.6 million. So the expenses here that incorporate this are amounts for day-to-day operations that provide municipal services such as roads, recreation, fire rescue, policing, building, planning, and landfill site. Now let's go ahead to the capital slide. So for the capital portion of the budget, these are larger items that have multiple year lifespans, things like snow plows, fire trucks, roads, and buildings. We started at a potential of $21 million in over 60 capital requests, but as the budget committees worked through that, we're now worked up to the point of $12 million prospectively with 34 remaining capital items, and those are another attachment that you can find on the town website under tonight's meeting. It's the 8th attachment, that's the last one on the list. This will also be reviewed at a budget committee meeting tomorrow, and like I was saying, addresses things like replacing aging fire trucks and equipment and repairing roads. These capital items are listed on this agenda, like I said, as attachment 8 for this meeting, and we're currently not looking to use 2026 tax levy to directly fund any 2026 capital items, but instead are looking at other funding methods for capital. On the next slide, just making reference to the asset management plan. This was completed in July 1st, 2025. And what it does is it's a legislative requirement, but it gives the town a tool to plan ahead for capital investments and replacement. And what it did is it calculated that annually there'd be a necessity for $13 million in capital asset renewals. It's an average that would allow the town to keep pace with replacing assets as they reach the end of their expected useful life. So we look to that as a tool as we do budget planning. On the next slide. For people who would like to look at the reserve schedule, we have projected reserves here that would tie in with our budget to the end of 2026. Reserves are a way of saving for larger planned items and goals. Some of those would be like water reserves, water pipes in the ground, water plants, things like that, where you plan ahead and you put money aside for those, knowing that eventually they'll need to be replaced. Reserves are a very good tool to help with timing and cash flows for the town. We're currently showing here that $5.1 million are going into reserves and $6.9 million would come out. And so that shows that we would use $1.8 million more than is being contributed as part of the 2026 budget as it's presented at the moment. On the next slide, we're showing the annual repayment limit. This is something that's set by the province. It sets debt limits for all Ontario municipalities, and it sets it at 25% of own source revenue. And what this is doing is it puts a safety limit on total amount of borrowing that each municipality can do. So that's a manageable amount, and it's monitored by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing as well. 2 slides forward. Here we have, for everyone, debt listing. Part of it is what at the top is external borrowing, which is from lenders such as Infrastructure Ontario, and then the bottom part is our internal borrowing details, which is where we borrow from ourselves and we pay it back on a set schedule. We can do this when we have areas that we've saved for it where the money's not yet needed, and then it can cover other projects in the meantime. It's another tool that we can use to fund capital. 2 more slides. So we also do our water and wastewater budget for 2026. It's a structured user pay system, and it's managed by the long-term water and wastewater financial plan and the water and wastewater rate studies that are calculated, and the water and wastewater rates have an annual increase that keeps pace with those costs. So we go 2 more slides ahead. I've taken this to show people from this slide directly from our rate study, and in 2026 on the chart there it shows a 2.5% combined annual increase. So what that represents for an average water user is a $32.24 a year increase for annual residential water and wastewater billing. And from there, we're looking at our next steps, and they're listed at the bottom of the page here. And those are, tomorrow we have a budget committee meeting at 10 a.m. And then, as I mentioned earlier, on Monday we have the last budget committee meeting also at 10 a.m. Those will have information published on the website in advance, and will also be live stream meetings for anyone who'd like to watch those while they're happening or after the fact. And another main step, at the very last step there, is the mayor proposed 2026 budget, and that follows the budget committee meetings. It's based on the new strong mayor powers, and the date for this will precede February 1st, 2026, but we have not yet had a set date for that, so we've made note of that on that slide as well. And once it is, then that will be information that we make available at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll proceed to the public portion of the meeting. And the purpose of the meeting is to try and answer your questions if we can today, and if not, we'll follow them up. So we'd ask you to state your name, if you don't mind, and just generally your street address. I don't think we need the number because we don't know who watches all of these YouTube, so we'd rather not advertise too many people's private information if we could. Council probably won't get involved too much in the conversation. We're just more interested in questions and then trying to provide you with some answers, and we'll try and get it to staff as well. So if you could just come up to the mic, state your name, and give us a couple of questions if you don't mind, please.
Who wants to go first? I don't know.
You go first, sir.
Does this chair take to sit on you? I just don't want to fall. I've already had a couple on the streets, okay? My name is Ron Kilby. My wife and I just purchased a house on Mayhew in July. And when we bought the house, our taxes were $4,600 a year. We get a tax bill in August, a month later, the taxes are $4,900 a year, $300 more a month. I'd like to know why that is. What's the reason for it?
Okay. Mr. Hodge, or do you feel comfortable enough? Mr. Hodge has only been here with us about 6 weeks, or CAO?
So through you, Reeve, the original billings that anybody would have seen at the beginning of the year would have been based off of last year's billing at 50%. So that is a legislated way that those bills are done. So any increase that is done for the levy approval for 2025 was a 10%. All of those are reflected on the final billing only, and so if you are only looking at that bill versus your previous bills, you will see the entire increase all in a single bill because we're not allowed to charge at the new rate until the budget has been passed. So if that happens to be done before the interim levies are created, then we're allowed to do it at 50% of the new levy. Otherwise, the full increase for a year would be reflected on the final bill for the year.
And I understand they're going up between 6 and 8% again in 2025?
No, sir, in 2026, the proposal
2026?
is at 8% now.
At that rate of going, I won't have enough money in my old pension to feed myself.
Okay. We're not promising you it's 8% today. That's what we're here to hear from you, and then we meet again tomorrow to work through the budget one more time.
So it's not firm that it's 8%. It might be 6%, eh?
I'm not sure.
What's the reason why the taxes are going up so high?
Part of it is we have, as Mr. Hodge mentioned, we have the asset management plan, which tells us we should be putting $13 million a year into infrastructure, so that's taking some of that could be part of the increase, but that's not in this instance. And then we have some long-term debt with the water treatment plant, the wastewater plant, street
Mattaway
lights.
Park.
Mattaway Park, yes.
Disaster.
Pardon me?
Mattaway Park, a real disaster.
Okay, yes, I was going to
People
add that.
stood there for weeks and weeks doing nothing, because I had relations work there, and they said we stood there for 2 days solid, we never touched a thing. That's why things are so high, okay? Nobody overlooking to see what's going on in the town.
Okay, well, we heard
know?
you, so we'll have some conversations about that internally, yes.
Because it's not fair to the people, okay? The people are paying your wages the same as everybody else's. We expect you people to look after us, okay?
Okay,
So, yes.
Councillor?
Thank you, Reeve, through you. Sir, you're right. With regard to Mattaway and the town hall renovations, I think that came to a total of about a 23% increase over the last 2 years that this town had to absorb. So there's a bit of catch-up that has to be made now, and we're trying to do our best with regard to dealing with what's necessary in terms of critical and what would be sort of extravagant. So the reality is, the numbers don't lie. It's brutal that we've had to absorb that. Absolutely. And we're doing our best that we can to try to mitigate it, and that's the reality of what we face right now in the town of Renfrew.
Very good. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
I don't have a lot of questions, but I do have some comments. Can everyone hear me okay? Because I find it a little muffled.
Sorry.
But I have kids, so my light's on, but sometimes I'm not home. Anyway, I'd like to...
Just your name, please?
Oh, sure. Deborah Wallace. I'm on the new paved 135 Stevenson Crescent. It's lovely. Smooth. All right. I guess just to give a little bit of background, I've been with the feds for many, many years, and I'll say I managed multi-million-dollar budgets, and you're talking almost to $1 trillion or $1 billion in budgets. And I think some of the things I've seen, and I've watched the videos of all the budget meetings, is that there's no real impact analysis done here. I don't see a SWOT, which is your strength, your opportunities, and your challenges. I listened to the fire department about their truck, and I understand that, that over a period of time everything wears out, but I don't think you have enough that you can digest this and then come to a final number. And that's just my opinion, and it's something, everyone here can talk about. That being said, I do agree with the gentleman that came up. Even at 8.81%, that's high. It's really high. It's more than the cost of living. And you can be rest assured that you're going to see more unemployment as a result of what's going on in the state. So maybe there'll be more money available from the province. Maybe there'll be more money available from the federal perspective as well. That can cover off some of the errors that were located, et cetera, et cetera. So demographics being such here in this town, it's 60% almost, everyone else excluded, but anyone 55 and older, like myself, nobody else. That's a lot of money. 8.81%. Yes. It's a lot of money for them. Outside of having a big bake sale, I don't know what you're going to do. Outside of, I read through your audited financial statements. I'm an accountant myself as well. And there are some things in there that might be able to be done. One of them is, and I think you're cooked for 2026. Honestly, you gotta move ahead. Somehow you gotta jiggle it throughout the year, and I've done that in the past when our budgets were cut. But you've got to start looking at maybe a zero-based budget review of what's going on in the town, what you need to get done. The other thing you might want to have a look at as well is where can you trim some of the fat? Where can you develop partnerships? Where can you get your economic services out and develop maybe having another business come in? Because if you had more of a base from an industrial or a manufacturing perspective, or even something like more of the Lapine, which I'm kind of disappointed they only put in 3 buildings and not 5, but I know the rationale behind it. I think that would go a far way. You know, like having the beer garden and everything, it was wonderful. Like, it's great. It's people are getting around and talking, but I think you're at an impasse right now. You can't keep deferring. You can't keep borrowing, so something's got to be cut back so you can catch up to where you need to be, and it's probably going to take you 5 years to do that. So, as I guess just kind of to wrap up a bit, 8.81% is really super high for the population that's here, the demographics that you're dealing with. You don't see enough building. You don't see enough economic development. I understand it's very difficult to get a building permit through. I haven't done it, but people are saying, yeah, it's very difficult, it's very expensive, and they don't want to build here. Like, I know that Mackey was supposed to build more homes, and I've been chatting with them because I want to downsize, and they say, no, we're going to go back to Arm Prairie. Even if you get a 4-lane highway here, if your taxes are so exuberant, you're not going to get people to move here. They'll live around here in Horton and places where the tax level is a little bit lower, but I don't think you'll get it right in town. Now, that's, again, my opinion and from what I've seen and my experiences, but I did want to come in and just kind of say that, and if I can help in any way, I'd be more than happy.
Thank you, Reeve.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve, through you. And I understand a bit of what you're talking about, zero-based budgeting. And I'd like to know what that means to you, just a bit more generally.
Yeah.
And are you thinking, I understand what you're saying with regard to this year, we need to trim the fat as much as we can.
Yeah.
But do you see it moving forward then for the next 5 years? You
Yeah,
use that term.
absolutely. I think it's like any budgeting process, you've got to go at least 4 to 5 years out and then come back in, but you need to see what you're going to do the year after. Like, the other thing I missed is financial statements. It's great what you have in terms of an audited financial statement, but you don't even have any summation. Like, what did it cost this past year compared to the year before, what they're expecting, and then you can kind of look to all the analysis that's on in the background, whether or not it makes sense. A zero-based budget is basically going back into your organization and costing everything out. But not just looking at it in terms of money, but is it efficient? Is it effective? Can you do more things with less cash? Can you do more things with less people? Can you do, I don't know, maybe a little bit more contracting out? You've seen it with the province of Ontario. And I worked on a partnership with the government, the provincial government, to move a whole bunch of our services out at the provincial level. Now, you don't want to downgrade all your programs and everything, but maybe those are some of the things you need to look at. You can't go from year to year to year to year and just kind of increase and increase and increase. It's just, you're going to, as I say, you're in an impasse right now. I don't think you can go any further without people basically dropping off and saying, can't live here. And that'll be a shame. It's bad enough the main drag is pretty well all for sale or lease signs right now. Can you imagine when the houses go that way? And God forbid, I'll use the B word, bankrupt. You would not want to have the ombudsman come in and have a look. You want to have that you're able to really talk about where you're at, what you're doing, and maybe you can even get some more help from the province. It's just my thought. Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andy Bolt. A number of you here know me. I've been spent a fair amount of time at Town Hall over the years and working on boards and committees, and of course grew up in Renfrew and been spent best part of 70 years here and brought my family up here. So also was the general manager out at Scapa for the better part of 25 years. So I care very deeply about Renfrew, and kudos to previous speaker. And I know I won't be as eloquent as she was, and I think there are some common themes, though. And a lot of what I wanted, I have some recommendations, I have some questions, not really to be answered tonight. But I sat down and you know, I spent a lot of time going through materials, watching council meetings, coming to council meetings at times. And the conclusion I came to is that I think that Renfrew is in an absolute crisis. And I think that kind of came through in some of the last comments. But why do I think that? Well, if this budget's approved as proposed, and you look back for the last 3 years, and you compound the increases over the, you know, the 3-year period, you're approaching 40% increase in taxes and levy in that 3-year period. And that's, I don't think that's normal, certainly well above cost of living. And I think we all know a lot of the contributors to that. But I also believe, looking at things, that if I don't see enough change, I don't see the path forward. And it gets back to, you know, a 5-year plan or 4-year plan, or how do you get to a sustainable level of levy increases where normal community like Ottawa just proposed a 3.75%. Now, we're not Ottawa, but you know, that would be more of a normal size increase right now. Certainly town population, as I remember it forever, it seems to be around 8,500. It hasn't grown in any significant way. I remember when this council first sat and there were special committees being set up so that we could be prepared for that huge rush of growth that we were going to experience. Well, it hasn't happened. Major housing developments, I don't want to upset anybody by saying this, but it just appears that they have stalled. I mean, there's infill going on, but the major subdivisions aren't going anywhere. Lapine stopped at 3. They were supposed to, I was, in the planning committee when they come in and had great plans to do all the buildings, one after the other, but that has stopped. I remember that as soon as Mattaway expansion was going to be announced, hotels were going to flock here. I mean, they were going to fight over who was going to build first, and we don't have one. It hasn't happened. Certainly as an industrialist, and I look around Renfrew, and I was on the Industrial Commission many years ago, and a lot of those industries aren't here anymore. Some are doing well but under threat, and some are hanging on by a thread. Certainly it hasn't grown. When I look at the asset management, I was sitting and listening to all of the proposals for the asset improvements and things that needed to be replaced, and it was a big list, and kudos to you to get it down to what you did over the last days. But it also sends the message that even with these major increases in capital spending and borrowing, another $7 million, we still can't keep up. We're not really doing what we need to do, and we keep pushing things out and delaying it. Certainly some things maybe never are needed, but there's a lot of significant things on there that just keep getting pushed out. And then, you're just listening to people and seeing people and knowing how businesses are struggling. I mean, it just all speaks of a crisis situation. So, my observations of this budget, the first thing I wanted to say is I could tell a tremendous amount of work, effort, and good thoughts went into this budget. I think this council, this administration, everyone really needs to be commended for the effort and time that they put into it. And as much as we're all worried about, where all it's going to end up, you're trying your damnedest. Thank you for that. And as I already mentioned, you noticed that I observed that the capital budget was significantly pared down, and looks like most or almost all of the fluff has been taken out of that, or non-critical, if you want to put it that way. But overall, I felt that the budget was approached as a belt-tightening budget. And really what the town needed was a crisis budget, because if you agree that it's a crisis situation, I think a different mentality or approach would have gone into it. I feel that the process, and this came out in some of the last comments in a different way, but the process for budgeting is a little backwards to what I'm used to, and done lots of them over the years. But I think that, I mean, there's a lot of work has to go on at on the front line to put a budget together. But I think where it starts, it has to start with council and the CAO, the finance department, and collectively you have to say, okay, what is it that we want to achieve out of this budget before you put the numbers to it, other than gross numbers. Like, I don't think this town can afford any more than I'll just say a 4% increase this year. I don't think sensibly, responsibly, we can afford any more debt this year load extra than this amount of money. That's what I'm used to dealing with, where I'm handed with that, and I have to try and put the package together to make that work, but successfully make that work. Not, and if you look at slide, I think it was 2, the first thing that happened was to ask the departments to sit down and update their budgets. Well, they need guidance to put that budget together. So I think it's it needs to be turned on its head a little bit in terms of how you approach the budget. And I think that also shows up again in the capital requests that were put out there. I mean, sitting listening to that review of some of those, I was shaking my head thinking, how could that possibly be on a budget or a list of capital if it's a crisis situation? So if they were working under that kind of direction, I think they would come forward with different recommendations. I don't see any real benchmarks in this presentation or any of the materials that I went through. How are we doing against other communities in many different ways? There are no slides, it seems absurd, there are no slides anywhere highlighting what the risks or opportunities are to this. So this is our budget, this is how we came to it, but is it a high-risk budget or is it a low-risk budget? I have no sense from that as a taxpayer as to where the weak parts are and the opportunities are. And another one, there's a lot of headcount within the organization. There's nothing, there's no indication other than I can go through the individual budget slides that were part of the information package and see where dollars have changed, but where are the headcounts in this organization? Because sometimes that highlights where the opportunities are. So my recommendations would be, I would rescind, if I was sitting on council, I'd rescind or reject this budget proposal outright. Again, I believe that 8.8% is too high, especially following the 2 years that we've had. I would then have council and CAO work collectively with you to establish what those firm goals are. What is it you want to achieve? If you're going to have people rework something, they need to know what it is, what they need to try and provide for you. And with firm but realistic time frames. I'd identify some key benchmarks for costs and performance to help ratepayers. We don't know really how we're doing against anybody. I think it would be good for council, I think administration, but ratepayers as well, is how do we compare? Maybe we think our taxes are too high, and I've heard, the comment, we've got the highest taxes in Renfrew County, which I take at face value, but how do we really compare on that one? And I would then have the CAO and treasurer come back. Not department heads, but the CAO and treasurer come back to you and recommend what that budget is, that revised budget. And you're not there to approve every individual thing, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion. You're like a board of directors. You're there to oversee it. You can ask questions about anything, but let the senior management team recommend to council what that budget should be once you've agreed on the guidelines for it. And again, highlight those key risks and opportunities. And within the, I think within the first 6 months of next year, I think you need to establish what I'll call it a strategic plan, but an action plan that will return Renfrew to a sustainable level. So, you mentioned that, we've had to, kind of suck it up, and hopefully we'll return, and hope's not a strategy. And what are the absolute, what's the plan? The specific plan, the things that are going to happen to get you to a sustainable level again. And I don't mean, there's a slide in there about it was the strategic plan, but those are all lofty, unmeasurable, sound really good. How can you disagree with any of them? But I'm talking about very specific, objective type things. So my questions for you, and again, not to be answered tonight, and again, it goes back to some members of council, and I've heard it elsewhere as well, have indicated we are the highest tax rate in Renfrew County. Could we be provided with an objective analysis of where we stand on that? Secondly, what was the head count for each department in total for 2024, 25, and the proposed for 2026? Don't know if there's an issue there because I don't have any numbers. What benchmarks, if any, are routinely used by this administration to compare Renfrew with other communities? And could these be posted on a regular basis and updated on the website? One that I know is not your responsibility, but are there any predictions when impact reassessment will be rescheduled? Because that's going to turn this town upside down like every other community in Ontario. And it's going to be, some people will be dancing in the street, but others are going to be very upset. Maybe a minor question, but or maybe more a suggestion. 5 o'clock is not the most convenient time of the day if you're having an important meeting like this. Just you might want to consider a little different time to get more people involved. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Andy, Andy, we don't know anything about impact.
Pardon?
We don't know anything about impact. No, I was in a meeting last week. We specifically asked that again. We thought we were going to get it right after the provincial election, but it doesn't appear, as it stands now, that we're going to hear anything from them before next spring. And in terms of asset management, right now there's about $150 billion worth of assets across Ontario that need to be refurbished. So we're kind of like everybody else, where we're only able to meet about a half to three-quarters of what our needs are. And so again, that's part of the fiscal sustainability conversations we have with the province and the feds. At one point we asked for 1 cent of the HST. We thought that like a penny would give us a certain amount of funding. We've asked a couple times for 5 cent, not a deposit, but a charge on bottles of water, because that way, and that could be circulated back in to operate some of the, to assist with the operation of water and wastewater plants. That has really hurt a number of municipalities. FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, has finally heard what we're saying, so they're picking that up and taking it to the federal government on our behalf. So those are just a couple of the really quick things. When we hear you about the 5 p.m. meetings, we'll try to do something a little different in the future with some of our public meetings. And the percent, we've been criticized in the past for setting the percent of, where we expect 2.5% and everybody managed towards it. So this year we tried something different, where we said come back to us with the budget with what you want, what you're recommending, and then we'll look at it. So maybe we should go back to the setting the benchmark and having staff make its way towards it. So, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Reeve, and to you. And what I'm picking up on, too, is that we understand the inner workings of what we're looking at and perhaps thinking ahead another year or two and trying to juggle things around. But the community, I think, doesn't have that hope because they don't realize. So maybe that's something we could look at, too. And I know it's with the strong mayor powers, it's up to the mayor. But if we have a 3 to 5 year budgetary plan so people can actually see and have a bit of hope that there's a way out of this. So that's something I think we've talked about before, but maybe we should look at.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's a piece that we can. I think we should be working on after we wrap this up, because I don't think the strong mayor power can impact that. You know, I think it would be a council guideline, and the mayor would be free to accept it or not. So that when Andy was talking about that, I was kind of reviewing it in my head, and I don't see the strong mayor power being, because it would be a recommendation from us to him. And so I think you're right. I think that's something, you know, we've talked about how we can work around the legislation first. Secondly, how can we turn something up? So yes, I think that's I can't think of a better word, but a product that we can put out there. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Legree, please.
Through you, Reeve Emo. Just a question maybe for the clerk or through you. So there's some great questions coming up here. Mr. Bold asked about FTE, full-time equivalent, over the last 3-4 years. I know sometimes we get internal emails and stuff for us to look at and stuff, but it's not going out to the public. So these questions that's being answered, are we going to, do we have to make a motion to get these answered, or are they automatically going to be, I just want confirmation that they're not asking questions and walking out the door and not going to hear anymore. Same with the municipal, like the comparison with taxes, like a 1% increase for us compared to Pembroke. So for us, it's $123,000 roughly. For Pembroke, it's probably $265,000, right? So like a comparison on that too, apples with apples, you know what I mean? So, and I know other municipalities, I own property in Renfrew and I own it in Admast, and last year our property taxes went up 23% in Admast. So I want to make sure these questions, I guess what I'm saying, is going to be answered somehow, and we're not just going to move on. So,
Clerk, please.
Thank you, and through you, Reeve. So with the public meeting, and similar to what we've done in the past with other public meetings, is that any questions that are asked today is that we try to compile them, and then we release a Q&A after the fact. So as part of the minutes of this meeting, anybody who speaks here at the table, those comments obviously will be recorded. Not word for word, but as best. We also have the digital copy of the meeting, but then also Q&As or questions that are asked are pulled out, and we'll be releasing a Q&A document to the best of our ability following the meeting. It will probably take us a few days to gather the data and respond, but that is the intent.
perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zabolski.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. And to follow up Councillor Legree's question that was just answered by the clerk, our next budgeted meeting is tomorrow and then Monday. These questions are valuable to what we're doing right now. It's a lot of work to get done in a short amount of time, so are these meetings of value tomorrow and Monday without all the answers from what we're going to see yet tonight?
Well, that's a conversation I was going to have with the CAO after this meeting, and then if there's a means of extending out the deadline to present to the mayor, what does that do to the February 1st deadline? So we have to take a look at the legislation of the strong mayor. We're really feeling our way along with this. So if we can postpone the meeting and move the deadlines out, then I think, you know, we have to have more information. We have to have more information regardless, and I don't know, well, I'm positive it can't be generated by tomorrow morning. So what does that mean for Monday? Do we go twice as long on Monday? So we'll have to have a conversation tonight. And, you know, if we have to postpone the meeting, we will, and I'll take the flak for that because I'm not really sure what authority I would use to do that, but I get the impression from council I wouldn't take much flak from them, so that's the important piece. So we'll get back to you, and I hate to say it that way. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Councillor Legree.
Through you, Reeve. So I agree. I actually had a conversation with the clerk about this before we got going tonight, because I agree there's going to be questions going to come out of this meeting tonight that the public, and for me, I know just in the last couple of days I'm starting to get emails and phone calls about stuff, right? So I'm assuming this will generate more, and I'd like to see it. The problem is that the 17th of November, this committee, this is not council's committee, it's dissolved, so we can't ask any more questions. It all goes back to this. I'm just going to say it: the strong mayor's powers is a joke. Like it's causing massive problems. And then we have a meeting tomorrow and Monday, and we have to get the mayor to approve that we can push it off. Right? So I totally agree with Councillor Sobalski. Thanks.
And to, just for your information, I don't have strong mayor powers as the acting mayor. It stays with the mayor, and the legislation doesn't allow it to be automatically transferred. So I'll have to have some conversations, first of all, with the mayor, or with the CAO, then with the mayor, and see what I can do. Thank you. Sir.
Hi, Bruce Rozicki. Also a resident, the newly paved Stevenson Crescent. Good to see my neighbor. How are you? I'd like to speak to a couple of things. One very specific line item that's proposed in the 2026 budget, and then some general comments. And I can lead off with, like Andy, I'm not surprised we were doing similar calculations. We served together on the Hydro Board for many years. But I also look back at our increases actually over the past 4 years, from 2022 to 26, and assuming it's an 8.8% increase. And the number I came up based on an average municipal taxes in Renfrew was a 37% increase. And, to Mr. Kilby's point, that's not sustainable for the people of this town. And my wife is recently retired. I've been retired for 10 years. We're living off a pension now and savings, and we're privileged. We're okay, but I really worry about younger couples just recently purchased a new home and they're mortgaged to the hilt. Really concerned about our downtown merchants. I was talking to one of the store owners downtown the other day, and his taxes are $20,000 a year. It's mind him. I can't even imagine how he's making his business go. And the old adage: you lose your downtown core, you lose your soul as a town. There's all kinds of warning flags out there right now. And I understand the baggage this council was faced with from the past. And to the comment that Reeve made about $13.3 million a year investment in the asset management plan, I can't imagine how the town can afford that, how we're currently operating the town financially. I attended the Sidewalk and Roads open house, one of the few people that did, a couple of weeks ago, and Director Bishop walked us through how the roads are assessed and how the replacements are put in play. And I do have some experience in this area. I had a 36-year career with Enbridge Gas, and one of my roles was a senior manager in the asset management group for about 2.5 years. And you can imagine billions and billions of dollars worth of pipelines and my role was with risk to make sure the gas company didn't kill anybody, basically. Asset management is critical. Having a good plan is great. It's good to see the town is actually doing this now, because I know in the past it was haphazard. But I'm wondering, with what we can actually afford without massive tax increases, how long is it going to take us as a town to reach a level of equilibrium with our asset management program where we're actually replacing enough to compensate for the assets that are failing? And that's the goal of an asset management plan. You want to run your assets to as long as you can before failure, and you need a plan to have your money in place and have your resources in place to replace those assets in a timely manner. The way we're right now, the way our finances are, our revenue side for this town, I just can't see it. I just can't even for a moment understand. And as Ms. Wallace talked about federal budgets, I built and managed budgets in my career O&M budgets 10, 15 million, capital budgets up to $30 million a year. And what we did is we did either zero-based budgeting or activity-based budgeting. There's a couple of options there. But every group, every department has to justify every penny based on past expense or based on the activities they plan to undertake. And if you can't justify, you get zero. And be careful about FTEs. The gas company lived under the rule, under the thumb of the Ontario Energy Board, and the Energy Board was always pushing us to keep our full-time equivalents, keep our staff levels down. Well, it's easy to keep it down if you contract out the work. It might cost you more, but you keep the OEB happy. So be careful about FTEs, because that's an easy way to reduce your head count, but it may cost you more money to actually do the work. So I'll stop there on that. And the one very specific item I want to talk about, I was watching the, gotta love YouTube, watching the October 27th budget meeting, and the one item that really caught my attention was the rooftop heaters at One Innovation Drive. And one of my roles with Enbridge was operations manager for Eastern Ontario. And I was a licensed gas fitter, so I've got some background in gas-fired equipment. I do recall those rooftops being installed, and I believe it was about 20 years ago. There were 5 units that went on. There's also some really, really old unit heaters. I was in the building, some old unit heaters actually in the structure. And Director Latondresse mentioned that they all need to be replaced, and we're having some problems with them. And they require $1.25 million. Well, I'm certainly hopeful that Council is getting a little more information on this topic other than those comments. Now, I'm hopeful that the town had some qualified licensed contractor go in and do an assessment of the units. And I would fully expect that contractor would say, hey, they're getting near end of life. I'm assuming that's what they would do, or what they should have done. You should start thinking about replacement. I fully agree with that. And they are expensive. They're basically massive forced air furnaces is what they are. They are extremely expensive. Now, typically, when it comes to gas-fired equipment, you replace it either when the repairs are so expensive it only makes sense to replace them, or when they fail and they're unsafe, and a licensed fitter is required to disconnect the appliance and red tag them, and they have to be repaired or replaced. Those are the two reasons you replace equipment. You may want to go to something that's more efficient. That might be another business case. I would expect that what the town needs to know in terms of replacement is have whatever contractor you trust and you want to have in there, have them go do assessment. They may have already done this, but we just don't know about it, is say, okay, here's your 5 rooftops. They're all the same age, they're all the same make, but Unit 2, there's been a lot of repairs, a lot of corrosion, there's some issue with the venting, whatever. If you're going to replace them, start with number 2 or number 1 or whatever. Get a professional opinion on, to the best of their knowledge, which unit should be replaced in order. To say they're old and we're having troubles, let's replace them all, to me that's absolutely irresponsible use of taxpayers' money. That's ridiculous. And it's also not the way you perform asset management. Condition monitoring is, as with the roads, you take a look at it, you determine to the best of your knowledge what the usable life of that asset is, and you run it as far as you can without it failing, and you replace it. That's the black magic to asset management. And I don't believe for a second that all those units need to be replaced right now. Some of them probably, and but get somebody in there to make an assessment of this. It's $1.25 million, which brings me to the point, do we really want to be a landlord and have to deal with these things? I'll leave that one for a little more thought. But anyhow, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. You'll be happy to know that we did land on replacing the oldest one, or the one that was causing us the most trouble, and also looking at whether we could store that one once we replaced it, because one of the things we heard was it was difficult to get parts, so that we could cannibalize it as needed. So that's what we rolled it out, we're going to replace them one at a time and shove them along as best we can and cannibalize the replaced model.
Can I make actually one more comment, an important comment, and I'm not sure if this is being done, and it hopefully is. One of the requirements of the gas code is that inspections have to take place on a regular basis based on the manufacturer's installation instructions, and every piece of commercial equipment I've ever seen is yearly. So every piece of gas equipment that the town owns needs to be inspected every year by a licensed contractor. And that's how you can do your condition monitoring, and you can ask for an opinion when they're inspected, like, you know, how's it look? Are we looking at some major repairs here? You know, you can even have them test heat exchangers, things like that. I imagine the town has a ton of gas-fired equipment in all the buildings here, and you don't want surprises like One Innovation. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Oh.
I'm going to sit here, not out the door, okay? So.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is David Ainsworth, live on Opeongo Road, long-term resident, had some businesses in town over the years, so you've heard some great comments tonight. Really well done, everybody. Hats off to you for coming forward and speaking and everything else based on experience. I'm going to be very brief in my comments. I agree we're in a crisis situation. I voiced my concerns almost 2 years ago now over this Mattaway deal and the legacy effect it was going to have on taxpayers, business, and residents. And the very future of the town is at stake. And I've been watching the tax increases come in, and I'm looking at what I'm paying, and I'm saying, yeah, it's an issue. And then I'm saying, but it's a real issue for people living on the edge, on the margins, and there are a lot of them in this town. The perception I get it from around the world, the Western world, in terms of the people do not feel they're listened to. You know, they voice themselves sometimes less articulately than they should, or very articulately, but it seems the bureaucracy rumbles onto its own tune. And so there's a lot of dissatisfaction in Canada. In every developed country right now, they're saying there's no more money. And I think people are smart enough to know, too, that our economy and our financial basis in Canada, it's terrible. It's not just Renfrew. It's the province of Ontario. It's the federal government, another $78 billion. Nobody seems to care too much. But there is a day of reckoning coming, and we all know it. What I would like to see is Renfrew become a shining light on how we can grapple with the current problem that we've got and move forward with a plan that the population, when they're sitting down at Finnegan's having breakfast in the morning, can talk about, yeah, they're taking some tough steps right now, but they're needed, and we'll back them out, rather than, as of yesterday, did you hear about the latest scandal rocking Renfrew? Another $850,000 that's going to hit the books and the taxpayers are going to have to pay. I think the people in town have had enough. I wish more people would be not so demoralized and come forward and just make sure that something happens. So I've listened to what everybody said tonight. Zero-based budgeting is an option for sure. I've kind of been talking about that for a couple of years now. It's very rigorous. It's time-consuming. The budgeting process should be looked at for sure. Maybe that's not the avenue to go. Maybe it's historical-based, but look at each item anyway and look at what the increments are. I have a different proposal, though, and I know people are going to walk away and say, is he absolutely crazy? Or that comment doesn't even, deserve the time of day. It's okay, I'm retired. I don't really care what you think. What I care about is what you do. This town needs a signal. It needs leadership to step forward and say, we are in a very bad state of affairs here. We can't mess with the books and pull from reserves and defer and delay and everything else that has to be done to patch the gaps. And that's what's going on, not just here. Every municipality in Ontario is in deep trouble. I don't know of any that are really flush with cash these days. So the province and the feds, well, we know that story. I'd like to see a commitment that we're going to have 0 tax increase for 5 years. 5 years, including inflation, and say our target is going to be this, and send that message out. And for that, there's going to be some pain. But it's going to be measurable, it's going to be obvious, and every taxpayer that's been beaten down with these increases is going to say, there's hope. And where there's hope, there's new investment comes into town. There's good news that comes into town. And Renfrew, in Little Renfrew County, could be maybe seen as a beacon of a refreshed atmosphere, methodology of doing things, that we're not just going to go and spend money because the province says, we're going to give you 50%, you match it, and we can have this new program. It's all coming out of the same taxpayer. So we don't need trickery, we need some leadership and say, look, this is a bold and daring move. Whatever, I don't really care what the budget is saying right now. I care about 8% increase when the inflation is 2.2, 2.3 or something. And then the county, what's the county coming in? Who said 6%, or we get that one? I don't know, people. It's going to get nothing but worse. So anyway, my message is simple. Take a look at the plan, say, we got to live with these dollars for the next 5 years. So when it comes to negotiating wages, when it comes to staffing people, when it comes to put some pressure back on contractors and say, look, we can't do it for that price, but we can do it for this. Because I think we're all just hanging on. And when everybody knows everybody's just hanging on in order to get ahead, you'll get people behind you maybe more than you think. So anyway, my message is, I don't want to see that fella paying another $1 in tax increase next year. I don't want to see anybody in this town paying. They're paying enough. And I think somebody's got to listen, So anyway, that's my message.
Very good.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? Okay, thank you. And the next one is that the minutes of the Budget Committee meeting held on October 20th and 27th and 31st be approved as provided. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Legree, second by Councillor McWhirter. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. It's carried. Thank you. And as it stands right now, our next scheduled Budget Committee meetings are tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and Monday, November 17th at 10 a.m. And we'll stick with that right now until we get some answers. Okay, thank you. And our regular council meeting is, Sorry, I'll just finish this. Our regular council meeting is Tuesday, November 25th at 5:30. Now, Councillor Legree.
Sorry, through you, Evimo. Just before everybody takes off, I want to thank, there's 15 or 16 people here that came out, took time out of their schedule to come and sit down in front of us and, give us their thoughts, and I really appreciate it. I wish this place was packed. I wish there was hundreds of people here. I'm kind of saddened to see there's only 15 or 16. That's people ask me all the time, it's my first term on council, 3 years in, what makes you not sleep at night? And it's not the emails, it's not the phone calls, it's not working different hours and stuff like that. It's the tax increase that this gentleman and you and everybody sitting in here has to go through. It's terrible. Like, people are just debating if they have to buy groceries or pay hydro, and that's what makes me not sleep at night. So I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and I wish this place was, we're overflowing them out in the hallways and everything, but so that part is sad, but I just want to say thank you to everybody before we close up. So thank you, Reeve.
Have it at a different time than 5 o'clock.
And I fully throw it down. I agree. Yeah. That's on us, and I apologize for that. So
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening, and the information. Really impressed with the detail of thought that was given to this budget and the suggestions. So, as I said, we will try and figure out a way to wiggle around some of the timelines of the strong mayor power legislation. The five of us are not strong disciples of the strong mayor power, to be quite frank with you, and so we've been a little frustrated with it. So we are trying to work within it, and we do take your comments to heart about the need to change the process. So we'll change the process again, and to echo what Councillor Legris has said, we all hear from people who are struggling. I'm meeting with people privately to talk about some of those things. We're trying to find some other answers. For instance, was it you, Andy, called it the Budgets and Sidewalks meeting, or was that Bruce? Whoever called the Budgets and Sidewalks meeting, was that you that termed it that?
Yes.
Or sorry, the roads and so we had some questions from that. So we're still getting some answers in terms of when council made decisions on plowing and some other things too. So it involves a pretty deep dive into minutes sometimes to try and give accurate information back. But we'll keep trying to do that. And we're going to be slow because of the amount of information that people are requesting, so it'll take some time, but you will get it. Councillor McWhorter, please.
Just a statement through you, Chair. I like Mr. Bolt's idea about the pickup percentage. In the past, council has done that, brought it to staff, said this is what we can live with. You need to find savings and bring that back to us. We've done it in the past. I like the way it worked, and I did mention this to you after our last budget meeting that I was in favor of that. Maybe tomorrow when we do our budget meeting, we can have a little bit of a discussion about that before we delve into tearing apart the operating budget. My problem with the operating budget is the directors know exactly what they need, and for us to take something out that might be a necessity as a cost savings, it may not be the best way to go about. But if they were to sit down and with a number, I'm sure they could do something with that, as they have in the past. So I'd like to try that tomorrow when we do our meeting. That's okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, just movements out of the corner of my eye. With that, the meeting is adjourned at 6:15, and we are having our regular council meeting. We'll start it at 6:30, so everybody can take a few minutes to get organized. I can figure out how to turn my computer on because it's just circling, so that'll take some time. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate your time and effort.
Thanks, guys.